People don't suddenly become different with age. More often, they simply become less willing to hide what was always there. If this idea feels familiar in your own life, take a moment to sit with it as we continue. By the time someone reaches 50, much of who they are has already been lived, tested, and quietly reinforced. The habits, the reactions, the emotional patterns, they've been practiced for decades. What changes is not the core of the person, but the effort they once made to adjust, to please, or to fit into expectations that no longer feel necessary. In younger years, many people are still shaping themselves. They compromise more. They soften their edges. They hold back certain tendencies because they are building relationships, careers, reputations. There is an unspoken understanding that how they present themselves affects what they receive in return. But over time, that calculation begins to fade. After 50, something internal shifts. Not always consciously, not dramatically, but steadily. People grow tired of performing versions of themselves that don't feel authentic. They begin to prioritize comfort over impression, familiarity over adaptation, and in doing so, the traits that were once moderated start to surface more clearly. Patience that was once practiced may give way to irritability that was always there beneath the surface. Politeness that once masked indifference may slowly disappear, revealing a lack of genuine interest. Generosity that once seemed effortless may narrow, showing where limits always existed. This is not because people become worse. It's because they become more transparent. One of the first signs of this shift is consistency. You begin to notice that certain behaviors are no longer occasional. They are predictable. The person who occasionally dismissed your feelings now does so regularly. The one who sometimes avoided accountability now rarely takes responsibility at all. What once felt like isolated moments begins to form a clear pattern. Another sign is a reduced tolerance for pretense. Many people stop trying to maintain social niceties that once kept relationships smooth. They may speak more bluntly, withdraw more easily, or disengage without explanation. While this can sometimes feel harsh, it often reflects a deeper truth. They are no longer willing to invest energy in maintaining appearances. There is also a shift in priorities. After decades of navigating life's demands, people tend to focus more on what feels immediately relevant to them. This can make them seem more self-centered, but often it's a narrowing of attention rather than a deliberate disregard for others. Still, the impact on relationships can be significant. And then there is emotional honesty, though not always in a gentle form. Some people begin to express opinions and attitudes they once kept hidden, not because those views are new, but because the need to filter them has diminished. This can reveal kindness that was always genuine, or indifference that was previously concealed. If you've ever looked at someone after many years and thought, they've changed, it may be worth asking a quieter question. Have they changed? Or have they simply stopped editing themselves? If you've noticed this in someone close to you, you might gently reflect on when you first saw glimpses of that behavior, even if you didn't fully recognize it at the time. What makes this realization complex is that it often challenges long-held perceptions. You may have built an image of someone based on who they seemed to be during a certain period of life, when they were more accommodating, more attentive, more aligned with your expectations. But as those filters fade, the difference between who they were and who they are now can feel unsettling. There can be a quiet sense of loss, not necessarily because the person has become someone new, but because the version of them you related to no longer exists in the same way. At the same time, there is also clarity. Because when people reveal their consistent patterns, without the earlier layers of adjustment, you are given something honest to respond to. No guessing, no interpreting mixed signals. Just behavior, repeated over time, showing you what is reliable and what is not. And this clarity invites a different kind of decision. Not whether to change them, but whether to adjust your expectations. Because one of the most difficult truths to accept is that by a certain age, deep change is rare without intentional effort. Insight alone is not enough. Awareness does not automatically lead to transformation. People tend to continue along the path they've practiced the most. This doesn't mean growth is impossible, but it does mean that waiting for someone to become fundamentally different, especially without clear action, is often a quiet form of self-denial. If you recognize this pattern in your own relationships, you might take a moment to consider, where have you been hoping for change? Even as the evidence has remained the same, there is a certain strength in shifting from hope to observation, from expecting to noticing, from explaining behavior to accepting what it consistently shows. And in that shift, something inside you becomes steadier, because instead of trying to reshape another person, you begin to focus on what is within your control. Your boundaries, your responses, your level of engagement. You may find yourself investing less in conversations that go nowhere, offering less energy to dynamics that feel unbalanced, stepping back, not in anger but in quiet recognition. And interestingly, this is often when relationships either recalibrate or reveal their true foundation. Some people will meet your clarity with their own. They may not transform completely, but they may adjust enough to create a more honest connection. Others will remain exactly as they are. And that too is information. If this reflection brought a quiet sense of recognition, consider sharing it with someone who may have been noticing the same thing in their own life. Growth logic. Thanks you for listening and being part of this reflection. In the end, the realization that people don't change as much as we hope is not meant to make you cynical. It is meant to make you clear. Because when you stop expecting hidden potential to suddenly appear, you begin to relate to people as they truly are, not as who they once seemed to be or who you wished they could become. And in that clarity, there is a different kind of peace, a quieter one, but a more lasting one.